Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy, a one stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. Let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper. These are the topics that we shall be discussing today comprehensively for prelims as well as the mains examination. And after the session is over, I will share the PDF of this session in my Telegram group. The link to join the Telegram channel is provided in the video description. Also, should you wish to prepare and trust Unacademy with your entire GS preparation, now is the ideal time to subscribe to our UPSC courses. Because, contrary to the normal times, right now our courses are available at a 60% discount. If you go through the website, you may see a different price being quoted on the website. Just to make it short, if you use this code IS English, automatically you will unlock the lowest subscription fee. And I'm told this offer is available for a limited period, so make the best use of this. I could already see a lot of comments in yesterday's videos as well asking for what is the end time. I seriously don't know what is the end time, but I'm told this is the limited time period. Clear? Let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper, and let's look at topic number one, inconclusive chapter. For example, NEET. Prior to NEET, to get admission in a medical college for your MBBS or BDS course, there used to be different exams. For AIMS, there was a different exam. For private medical colleges, there would be different exams. Then, for deemed to be universities, there would be different exams. And ultimately, there was no standard syllabus, common syllabus for these exams because more or less the syllabus would also vary. The difficulty level of the question paper would also vary. And there was an allegation of nepotism as well. And ultimately, as a student, you had to fill various forms, application forms to appear in all these different kinds of examinations. That is why a decade ago, the government decided that let's have one common centralized examination for admission into UG medical and dental courses. And that is how NEET was given birth to. Because prior to NEET, different sets, different tests with different syllabi, with different difficulty level, this used to be the norm. Each application would cost money, which was not affordable for a vast section of our society. Then, on top of that, there was this menace. Whether this menace has been eradicated or not, we will discuss that slightly later. Capitation fee. So, you give private medical college 2 crores, 5 crores in lump sum at the start, and then annually you had to pay the tuition fees, which would make this medical course, this dental course, unaffordable to a massive majority of the Indians. So it was not merit based, it was primarily on the basis of your economic condition. And then dummy candidates used to block seats. So even if there is an examination conducted, there are candidates who appear to have qualified these examinations, but some of them would be dummy candidates, they would block the seats. And after a while, when they will not seek admission in these colleges, then what would happen? These seats would become vacant, and then these seats would be offered in exchange for lump sum money, capitation fee, donation to wealthy individuals and their kids. And at the same time, as I said, frequent cases of malpractice, frequent cases of favoritism, paper leak as well. Now, to have a standardized common entrance test at the UG medical level. That is how NEET was proposed. But it is this NEET which has been challenged by the states such as Tamil Nadu, which is not acceptable to various states. For example, West Bengal as well. But particularly Tamil Nadu is against this. That is why many years ago in 2017, then again in 2021, bill was passed by the Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly unanimously asking the government, the central government, because education is under concurrent list, which means if a state wants to come out of NEET, Then it has to pass a bill, but this bill has to be approved, assented to by the president. Because in case there is a discrepancy, in case the state law violates the parliamentary law on a subject which is mentioned in the concurrent list, then you need assent of the president. If you get the assent of the president, then your law will prevail in Tamil Nadu. This bill, when it was unanimously passed by the Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly, it was sent to governor, and you know the tussle between the governor of Tamil Nadu and the government of Tamil Nadu. For 5 months, the governor did not act, and then later on sent the bill back to the legislature. And again, the legislature of Tamil Nadu passed the bill unanimously, but this time the governor reserved it for the consideration of the president. And now the chief minister of Tamil Nadu has informed the Legislative Assembly of Tamil Nadu that the president has withheld her assent to this bill, seeking exemption of Tamil Nadu from the NEET system. And this editorial says that it is a useless thing for the state to try, because when Supreme Court has decided upon the constitutionality of NEET, it was not binding on the president to give assent to such a bill. And if you keep on persisting with this issue, you are causing anxiety to the lakhs of medical aspirants in the country, in the state particularly. It will cause anxiety to them, it will affect their preparation, and ultimately, this is an inconclusive chapter. Ideally, what Tamil Nadu should do, it should prepare its students for clearing the NEET examination. But today, let's try and understand this issue holistically. The year was 2024, last year. 24 lakh aspirants appeared in the NEET examination. For every application, you have to pay the application fee. Who conducts this examination? NTA, National Testing Agency. By charging application fee, NTA has generated revenue to the tune of 337 crore. But that's not the only issue. The other issue is that students have to pay lakhs of rupees to get admission at various coaching institutes to prepare for this examination, which would basically mean that candidates belonging to the poor families, they are at a disadvantage. Critics argue that this examination is biased in favor of those students who prepare under the CBSE system. This examination is considered to be biased against those students who are from government schools and who study in the vernacular languages. And this is what critics argue makes this entire examination system biased and not suitable for a geographically and culturally vast country such as India. On top of that, there are allegations against NTA as well. Because the NEET examination, when it was conducted in 2024, there was an allegation of paper leak. But not just paper leak, there was also an allegation that grace marks were provided. Grace marks were allocated to students arbitrarily without any logic. And that is how a large number of candidates scored 720 out of 720. Tamil Nadu particularly says that this examination goes against vernacular education, it goes against the students who are studying in the government schools, and it goes against the merit system. How? Let's try and understand this in great detail. Once you appear in the NEET examination, you will get admission in a government medical college, and then there are private medical colleges as well, right? Previously, for AIMS, there used to be a separate exam. For JIPMER, there would be a separate exam. Similarly, as I said, for private educational institutions, separate exams, deemed to be universities, separate exam. Now, there is a one centralized examination. So, based on this examination, the advantages, one exam, same level of difficulty, same syllabus. And through this examination, we test all the candidates uniformly. And then, regardless of where you are domiciled, regardless of your state, regardless of your place of residence, you can get admission in any medical college, dental college, anywhere in the country. So, this is one nation, one exam for medical and dental courses. But once these 60,000 odd seats in government medical colleges are filled up, then the remaining private medical college seats, 50,000 of them, they are up for grabs. And they are up for grabs, particularly for those who have the paying capacity, which means the wealthy individuals and their kids, which primarily means that this dream of MBBS virtually becomes unattainable to the students who belong to economically weaker sections of the society, despite the fact that they are scoring well in the NEET examination. But because they don't have enough money to pay to these private medical colleges, ultimately what happens? Their MBBS dream is shattered. Nearly half of these MBBS seats, they become virtually the preserve of the wealthy. So if you are wealthy, you can afford these seats. So basically, if NEET was implemented to create some sort of a merit based system, you are making mockery of this merit based. But implementation of NEET was not the only alteration that was done in the medical education system in India. So if NEET was introduced a decade ago, we also saw that the Medical Council of India was dissolved because there were allegations of corruption in Medical Council of India. We have already witnessed previously that when a private medical college in UP, it was disbarred by the Medical Council of India from taking admissions because the quality of education, the standard of infrastructure was very poor. Bribes were offered to various judges as well, because of which a favorable judgment was given in favor of that private medical college by the Supreme Court itself. And this has been in the public domain. So there were allegations of corruption against Medical Council of India, and that is how told, and rightly so. But another alteration took place. Previously, there used to be 1:1 student teacher ratio in medical colleges. That was brought down to 1:3. And then PPP model. PPP model in the sense medical colleges were to be developed in every district. And then the entire district hospital, the government hospital, was handed over to this private player. This was viewed as some sort of PPP model so that we can involve the private players in developing the health infrastructure, medical infrastructure in this country, because government alone cannot inject massive amount of money to develop this sector. And then we saw Ayushman Bharat, a medical insurance scheme that allows the needy, the poor, the marginalized, the downtrodden sections of the society to get insurance, medical insurance. And then primary health centers, which you see in states, in localities, these were renamed as Ayushman Arogya Mandir. But then the point is, all this was done through private partnership, which means when you involve private players, this was considered to be primarily under the service sector of the government. It was considered to be a public good because yesterday I told you health, education, sanitation is something that should be kept within the purview of the state, within the purview of the government. We should not hand it over to the private players because private players, by their very logic, are focused on profit and revenue maximization. There is less involvement of public good when it comes to the private sector. But be that as it may, what are we discussing? We are discussing NEET examination. And the question related to NEET examination also raises question on equity, questions related to federalism, question related to affordability of education. All these are important questions, and you can't wish away from these questions. NEET was not the only alteration in our medical space. We reduced the teacher student ratio, we dissolved the Medical Council of India, we implemented the PPP model, we also provided insurance cover to the needy. But at the same time, look at the other countries of the world. For example, UCAT in UK, MCAT in United States. How do these examinations function? In these countries, only those students who have excellent grades, excellent performance in higher secondary education, they are allowed to take the exams. But in India, in NEET examination, there is no limit to the number of attempts you can take. You should be 17 years of age. That is the minimum age criteria. And then you can take these exams multiple times till you cross the age limit, which is 25 for some and relaxable by 5 years for others in the reserved category. And at the same time, NEET examination is not only reserved for those who have excellent grades in higher secondary level. The minimum qualification is you should be a pass. You should have passed the higher secondary school, and that would make you eligible to write and appear in the NEET examination, which would basically mean what? The students in the school would not take school education seriously, which would primarily mean that there will be a decline in the educational criteria, in the educational standard in the schools, because you're lowering the criteria. If I was told in the school that your performance in the higher secondary, maybe 10th, 11th, 12th combined, will determine whether you can become a doctor or not, I will take school education seriously. But unlike United States and UK, where you can take these medical examinations only if you have performed excellently in the higher secondary school examination, in India, NEET is for everybody if you're eligible, which primarily means we lower the standard of school education. And then at the same time, there are incidents, as I told you, related to paper leaks. Grace marks arbitrarily awarded by the National Testing Agency. And that is why last year there was even a petition filed before the Supreme Court, but Supreme Court said no retest when Justice Chandrachud was the Chief Justice of India. Apart from that, look at Tamil Nadu specifically. We say states such as Tamil Nadu, Kerala, they have emerged as model states when it comes to education, when it comes to health, when it comes to human development indicators. Tamil Nadu, for example, it has experimented a lot when it comes to the medical sector. For example, there was a time in the 1970s when admission to medical colleges would be done on the basis of the interview of these students. And then in 1980s, two-third weightage used to be given to concerned subjects. For example, how you have performed and scored in physics, chemistry, biology, that would determine. Two-third weightage would be given to these subjects on the basis of which, together with interview, it will be determined whether you can become a doctor or not. Then Anand Krishnan Committee was set up, and following the recommendations of the Anand Krishnan Committee, because in interview also there can be an element of corruption, there can be an element of favoritism, there can be an element of nepotism as well. And basis the recommendations of this committee, entrance exams were abolished. And then admission into engineering colleges as well as medical colleges and dental colleges was solely on the basis of the marks that you get at the higher secondary level. No entrance test, but basis your marks at the higher secondary level, you would be getting admission in medical colleges and dental colleges and engineering colleges in the state of Tamil Nadu. But when NEET was enacted, that means now this model of using higher secondary marks as the basis of admission, this continues in Tamil Nadu only for engineering courses, not for medical and dental courses, because these courses now come under a centralized examination called NEET. Then, sir, what else can be the issue? We are a country which is geographically vast, and we are culturally diverse as well. Sociologists, educationists, anthropologists, they agree. Researchers agree that your culture, your racial status, that will determine your ability. And if there are people who are from different cultures, different racial backgrounds, you will be able to present your ability differently. So maybe a student of Tamil Nadu would present his or her ability differently as compared to someone from UP and Bihar. So, can for a country which is geographically vast, culturally diverse, such as India, we can have one common examination to test all different kinds of students throughout the country? Shouldn't this be decentralized? And the more you decentralize, the more you are going to strengthen federalism. American educationists, for example, Mr. William and Kim, they say if different people have different cultural and racial experiences, they present their abilities differently. And when they present their abilities differently, it is unlikely that a single measure could be developed that would work equally well for all. That means if there are students with different culture and racial experience, such as in India, can we subject them all to one common standard such as NEET? Then, sir, what should be the alternative? If you're talking about problems, what should be the alternative? The alternative is instead of one single test such as NEET, can we not say that we will assess students for 2 to 3 years? Maybe their performance in 10th, performance in 11th, performance in 12th. And then a general aptitude test would be prescribed. And basis your performance in 10th, 11th, 12th, and this general aptitude test, we will decide whether you can be admitted to a medical college or not. That's number one. Along with this, there has to be caste based reservation as well. Why? Because we can talk about equality only when the country is equal. But when the country is unequal, when there is discrimination on the basis of caste and tribal identity, to ensure equity, to ensure justice, we need to provide reservation as well. So, this caste based reservation should also be provided. Along with that, quotas should be given for government school students. Because although the fact is that government school teachers are paid good remuneration, salary as compared to private school teachers, but the way in which education is imparted, we see quality and we associate quality with private educational institution, and we associate mediocrity with a government educational institution, which means then we need to ensure equity and justice. Quotas should be given for government school students. And as I told you, there is no limit to the number of times you can appear in the NEET examination. Previously, there used to be a limit of 3 times. Now there is no limit. We need to prescribe the limit, so we need to keep the number of repeaters to a fixed percentage. Limit the number of repeaters. And at the same time, allocating 15% seats for candidates from the rest of the country, because our preambular objective is also fraternity, a sense of common brotherhood. We can't say that the seats in Tamil Nadu medical colleges should be reserved only for those who are the domiciles of Tamil Nadu, or for that matter, the seats in UP and Haryana. We have to ensure fraternity as well, which is the sense of common brotherhood. And for that, 15% seats should be reserved for candidates, should be allotted to candidates from the rest of the country, as is the practice today, where there is an all India quota of 15%. For example, if you have been studying in an engineering college, you would see after 2 semesters are over, in the third semester, you will see new set of students are joining your class. And these are the new set of students who have joined your third semester BTech from polytechnic courses because they have completed the 3-year diploma. That is what we call lateral entry. Shouldn't this lateral entry also be there for medical colleges as well? Maybe students who have pursued nursing, after pursuing nursing, they should be eligible to complete the MBBS course as well. So, this lateral entry will be taken care of. And at the same time, sir, the solution that you have prescribed, there is a problem. What if there is a tie? That is why in the high school board examination, there should be objective type questions should also be added. So that in case of a tie, the score in the objective test shall be determined to resolve that deadlock in case there is a tie. So instead of Tamil Nadu calling for a meeting of all the political parties to decide on the next legal steps as to how to counter this NEET examination, this editorial says that you should not focus on that. Instead, you should help your students prepare for the NEET examination. And what is NEET? What are the problems with NEET? How does it affect federalism, equity, justice? That is something that we have covered in this session. Any questions as of now? Please let me know. Okay. Now let's look at another column, a case for a fair seat allocation. Now, I also know that this topic I have covered multiple times in these sessions. Other teachers, my colleagues, have also covered this topic multiple times. But every time there is an article on this particular issue in the newspapers, sometimes the article brings in a new dimension. And that new dimension we have to understand. But if you have already covered this topic in great detail previously, you can skip this part of the video and jump to the next article. For those who are preparing for this exam now, beginners, please stay with me and understand this topic. And this topic I have also linked with another beautiful column written in the Indian Express today by Mr. Arvind Datar. Delimitation. Our country is plagued with a lot of controversies, and many of these controversies are avoidable as well. But one controversy which has the potential to drive a wedge, which may be a permanent wedge between the northern and southern states, is this controversial issue of delimitation. And what is this delimitation? Article 81 of the Constitution says that there should be 530 seats in Lok Sabha elected from the states. And maximum there should be 20 MPs in Lok Sabha elected from the union territory. But right now, the strength of Lok Sabha is 543. Then the same article also says, Article 81 says, that how do we assign and allot these seats to various states? That is done on the basis of population. And we say that the ratio between the population of a state and number of seats which are allocated to that state, as far as practicable, should be the same for all the states. Which means, notice this highlighted phrase, as far as practicable. And I will tell you the significance of this phrase slightly later. But the point is, ratio of the population and the number of seats allocated to a state, as far as practicable, should be same throughout the country. Means if for every 10 lakh population there is one MP in UP, for every 10 lakh population there should be one MP in Tamil Nadu as well. Which means as the population increases, the number of MPs should also increase. And that is why Constitution says under Article 82 that we have to do readjustment of seats called delimitation. Readjustment in the sense as the population increases, the number of seats should also increase. Which means after every census, there has to be this readjustment called delimitation. The year was 1976 when the Constitution was amended, 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976. It froze this delimitation till 2001. Why? Because when after the census of 1951, delimitation was carried out, after the census of 1961, delimitation was carried out, after the census of 1971, delimitation was carried out. And because of that, the number of seats in Lok Sabha increased from 489 to 513, then to 543. So seats kept on increasing. When seats kept on increasing, which means some states got an increase in the number of seats, some states got a decrease as well, which happened after the census of 51, 61, 71. But then in 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976, Constitution was amended to say no further delimitation till 2001. But listen to me carefully. Why this was done? It was not explained in written. No explanation was provided why it was done, but we know why it was done. Why it was done? Because the southern states protested, saying if for every increase in the population you will increase the number of seats in the Lok Sabha, there will come a time where southern states will get reduced representation in Lok Sabha, and the northern states will get increased. Why? Because in northern states they have failed to prevent population explosion. But then delimitation was carried out after 2001. Delimitation was carried out in 2002. But when this delimitation was carried out, it also preceded with another constitutional amendment called 84th Constitutional Amendment Act when Mr. Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. And this time reason was given. Reason was that we will not increase the number of seats till after we get the census figures of 2026. That means now no further delimitation will take place. And even if delimitation will take place in 2002, it will not result in the increase in the number of seats. The number of seats can only be increased once the census figures after 2026 become known. After 2026, ideally, when do we have a census? Because census is carried out every 10 years. Census first was carried out in 1872, but it was a non-synchronous census, which means the census was not carried out in the entire country in one go. But the synchronous census carried out throughout the country in one go at the same time. This practice started in 1881. That means during the colonial period. And then every 10 years, this decadal exercise, the census exercise, used to be carried out, and which was carried out uninterrupted till 2011. After 2011, this next census was planned in 2021, but it got delayed. Delayed because of COVID-19 pandemic. When it got delayed because of the COVID-19 pandemic, further delay. Even now, the census has not been carried out. This is where the southern states, particularly Tamil Nadu, they are in a jittery. Why? Because they fear the government is delaying the census. Why? The government may carry out the census in 2026. So that, because after the census figures after 2026 are known, only then delimitation can be carried out. Which means ideally delimitation or increase in the number of seats could have been carried out after 2031. But maybe the government of India is trying to increase the number of seats starting 2029 itself, so that by the time next Lok Sabha election is conducted, we already see an increase. So the allegation is that the central government, because census is under the central government is delaying the census so that they will conduct the census after 2026, so that once the census figures after 2026 are known, then basis that census, we will carry out delimitation so that this new parliament will start functioning from 2020. Then what happened in 2002 delimitation? For example, this is a state which has three constituencies. For every 1 million, let's say, there is one MP. Because as much as possible, you have to allot seats in such a manner that the one person, one vote, one value is recognized. 1 million people are represented by one MP in all the constituencies of the state. But this was done on the basis of 1971 census, because in 1981 there was no delimitation. 1980, 1991 there was no delimitation, which means during this 30-year period from 1971 to 2001, there would be an increase in the population. And maybe it has resulted in misbalance, in a sense that here 2 million people are represented by one MP. Here, 3 million people are represented by one MP. So let's say here, 4 million people are represented by one MP, which means within the state, one person, one value, one vote has not been followed. Then what happened after the delimitation of 2002 was that total number of seats will remain 3. But maybe what we will do, 2 plus 3, 5 plus 4, 9, which means we will divide the three constituencies in such a manner that in every constituency there are 3 million population. There is 3 million population. Story short. If the constitution says that there shall be 530 seats from states in Lok Sabha, 20 from union territories in Lok Sabha, right now our strength is 543. Can this number be increased? This number cannot be increased unless and until we have the census figures after 2026, because we have frozen delimitation. The last time delimitation was conducted was in 2002, but it did not lead to an increase in the number of seats. And what happened because of that 2002 census was that internally there was a reorganization, so that at least if we will not increase the number of seats in a state, but the population in every constituency remains constant, uniform. And this delimitation was also done, increase the number of seats reserved for SCs and STs, because there has to be reservation for SCs and STs in Lok Sabha, and that can be done on the basis of the proportion of their population. So if the population is increased, overall number of seats will not increase, that will remain the same, but the number of seats reserved for SCs and STs will go up. That happened because of the delimitation in. But when 84th constitutional amendment took place, this time a reason was given why we are further freezing delimitation by another 25 years till 2026. Why are we doing that? And the government said it is a motivational measure. We want to motivate the state so that they can stabilize their population. And this has been part of our national population policy. As a motivational factor, we want the states to be motivated so that they can control their population. Because if we do not freeze this delimitation, then states will have no incentive to control their population. Because why would a state control the population if, on the basis of the population, your voice in Lok Sabha will increase? You will get more representatives in Lok Sabha. According to Arvind Datar, the reasons that justified this 84th Amendment, those reasons prevail today in 2025 as well, because population has not been stable. Then what else? Lester Macmillan, he writes a paper called Redistributing in Comparative Perspective, published by Oxford University Press. It says that from 2001 till 2026, the entire country's population has increased by an approximate 38.2%. But this increase in the population has not been uniform. States such as Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand, the population has increased by 55%. States such as Bihar and Jharkhand, because the Bihar and Jharkhand, it was one common state, but it was bifurcated in 2001. There, the population has increased by 51.4%. But look at the other states, such as Tamil Nadu, such as Maharashtra, such as Karnataka, where the population increase has been 15.5%, 28% in Maharashtra, 24% in Karnataka. So the population increase has not been uniform. But listen to me carefully. The beautiful article written by Mr. PDT Achari, the former Secretary General of the Lok Sabha, he prescribes a solution. What is the solution? And then I will raise another topic. What is the solution that is prescribed by PDT Achari? He says if we use population as a criteria to assign seats or allot seats to different states, because when it was done in 1952, when this delimitation was done in 1952 after the census of 1951, the population at that time was 37.2 crores. And that is how the number of seats were 489, which means on an average, every constituency had 7.6 lakh people. But then in 1971, the population increased to 54.8 crores. Total number of seats became 543, which means roughly for 10 crore, there was one MP. Not 10 crore, 10 lakh. For every 10 lakh, which means 1 million, there was one MP. You don't have to remember these figures, but just understand the logic. If we use the same formula, that means today, if our population is, let's say, going to increase, we may have 800 seats. Why? Because if you look at the strength of the Lok Sabha right now, the seating capacity of Lok Sabha, it is more than 800. That is why some people also say that the very reason why government created a new parliament building by converting the old parliament into a museum was because you wanted to implement delimitation prior to 2029 so that the number of seats can be increased. If basis the existing population, you are carrying out delimitation, then for every 18 lakh population, there will be one MP. Then basis that what we will see, some states, Kerala will have the same number of seats as they have currently. Tamil Nadu will gain only 4 seats. Uttar Pradesh will gain as much as 54 seats, which means then it will be disproportionate. Proportionate on the basis of population, but disproportionate to southern states because they have been successful in implementing family planning program. Then what PDT Achari argues? Just listen to me carefully, this point, and you don't have to read the entire article. Can we take Kerala as a base? Why? Because Kerala has been a state where we have seen population stabilized. The maximum impact to the best impact. Kerala's population in 1971 was 2.14 crore, and in 2025 it is expected to be 3.6 crore, which means there has been a 68% increase. Consider Kerala as a base and use the top up of 68% for the entire country. That means, regardless of what has been the increase in the population of UP or Uttarakhand or Jharkhand or Goa, doesn't matter. For every state, increase the number of seats by 68%. Which means, if we apply this formula, Uttar Pradesh will get 134 seats. Kerala, which today has 20 seats, it will get 34 seats. Tamil Nadu, which has roughly 39 seats, it will get 66 seats. Total seats we have 543. If we increase it by 68%, that means total number of seats in Lok Sabha will have 912. Which means if you don't want population alone to be the criteria, in a sense, as the population increases, corresponding to that, you should see an increase in the number of seats. This may be counterproductive in India's federal system because then states such as UP, states such as Bihar, states such as Jharkhand, they will see a massive increase. But then states such as Tamil Nadu, Kerala will see a reduction. Then what we can do, we can use Kerala's population increase as a base. If the Kerala's population is increased by 68%, then increase 68% seats for all the states, which means 543, 68% would become 912. And by that logic, UP will see a 68% increase to 134 seats. Otherwise, UP would have got 4 times increase based on the population increase that we have seen in UP. Right or not? But, sir, you said something about 55%. Now you are saying 4 times increase in UP. This 55% in UP is only from 2001 to 2026. I am talking about the increase in the population from 1971 to 2025. We may have seen a fourfold increase in the population in UP. Fourfold increase would mean 80 into 4, 320 seats for UP, according to PDT Achari. So we should not do that. We should use Kerala as a basis for population increase. If their population is increased by 68%, give 68% top up to all the seats, all the states. But something else. I told you, remember that phrase, that the ratio between the population and the seats allotted to a state, as far as practicable, should be same for all the states. It has not been same for all the states. Because Goa has 2 members in Lok Sabha for a population of 1.5 million. But New Delhi, with a population of 33.8 million, it has 7 only. That means, is it practically same for Goa as well as for Delhi? No. Look at the northeastern states. Despite lower population, they have more MPs in Lok Sabha. More MPs, sir, they have only one or two MPs in Lok Sabha. That is still more than bases the population. Because look at UP, look at Bihar. There more number of population and less number of seats according to the population. Which means the framers of our constitution would have never anticipated that the growth of population would be so unequal in India. That means in some areas there will be reduced population. In some areas there will be population explosion. That the growth in population would be so unequal, it will render this principle of population proportionality inequitable and unfair. So population should not be the criteria for reorganizing the country. But then we need to ask a fundamental question. Do we need more MPs? Do we need more MLAs in the states? When constitution was being amended in 2001 to further freeze delimitation by another 25 years, so that till 2026 we can't have delimitation. At that time, one member of the parliament said, why should there be an increase in the number of seats basis the increase in the number of population? Are we creating a parliament or are we creating a mela? What would happen if the number of MPs in Lok Sabha are not 543 but are 900? Will the quality of debate in parliament enhance? Will the quality and the quantity of the kind of laws that we pass in the parliament increase, enhance, be better? Will more tables and chairs be thrown at each other? Will more microphone will be lifted and thrown at the presiding officer? What will happen if we increase the number of MPs and MLAs? What will happen is cost on exchequer would increase, which means it will be a burden on public revenue, public money, your and my money. The quality of debate will not increase. The quality and the kind of laws that we need will not increase. On top of that, we have a limit that at the union level, the strength of the Council of Ministers, including the Prime Minister, should not be more than 15% of the Lok Sabha. Right now, it is 15% of 543. Tomorrow, it will become 15% of 900, which means more ministers. More ministers means more bungalows for them, more vehicles for them, more cost on them, more housing for them, which would further be a drain on our exchequer. And despite that, we will not see better laws getting passed or improved functioning of the Lok Sabha. Then, sir, what do we need? As Bismarck would say, the statesman of Germany, who is responsible for the unification of Germany. He also went on to become the first chancellor of Germany, unified Germany. He said, politics is the art of the possible, the attainable, the art of the next best. For example, you might have heard the phrase, let perfect not be the enemy of good. Politics is the art of the possible. And what is the possibility attainable right now? Freeze the number of seats. Amend the constitution and say the number of seats will remain frozen, will remain 543 in Lok Sabha. The number of seats in legislative assemblies will also not increase forever and ever and ever. Permanent freeze on delimitation. Why? Because the principle of population proportionality must be abandoned. Why? That's the question for you to answer. The need of the hour is a unified India, not a bigger parliament. Will bigger parliament make India more united? Or what is the need of the hour? To create a united India or a bigger parliament? The need of the hour is a united India, not a bigger parliament. Comment with reference to the impending delimitation exercise and write the answer to this question in 250 words. Okay? Great. Let's look at another question, another column. Clean voter lists or the choice of Aadhaar linkage. This is written by a Congress politician, so you'll have to take it with a pinch of salt. Would be critical, but the author also raises some valid questions. But let's try and address these issues. He says that the Economist magazine lamented that India is obsessed with giving its people unique IDs. And the author says Economist is half wrong because we are obsessed in giving people IDs. But IDs do not necessarily mean unique ID. What is unique ID? For example, Aadhaar. Aadhaar is a unique 12-digit identification number. And what makes Aadhaar unique is because you have to part your biometric details. For example, fingerprint. For example, iris scan, fingerprint. That makes it unique for every individual. But when this Aadhaar was implemented, initially it was the brainchild of Dr. Manmohan Singh when he was the Prime Minister. He invited Nandan Nilekani, the co-founder of Infosys, to start this Aadhaar project and create an authority called Unique Identification Authority of India, responsible for generating Aadhaar. Later, when the BJP came to power, a statutory backing was given to Aadhaar because previously there was no law authorizing Aadhaar. But then a law was passed, and then this law was challenged in the court. In a famous case known as K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India. The petitioner, who was the former judge of the Karnataka High Court, he had alleged that this Aadhaar, what it does, it violates privacy. And right to privacy is a fundamental right under Article 21. So Aadhaar should be declared unconstitutional. At that time, the government, before the Supreme Court, said Aadhaar is right to privacy is not a fundamental right. Then, long story short, a 9-judge bench of the Supreme Court was constituted first to determine whether privacy is a fundamental right or not. And all these judges, through unanimity, in a unanimous verdict, by a majority of 9 is to 0, said right to privacy indeed is a fundamental right under Article 20. But fundamental rights, by their very nature, are not absolute. So even the right to privacy cannot be an absolute fundamental right. And the Supreme Court said if there is a legitimate state interest, you can violate privacy. I will not expand on this point, but long story short, Aadhaar, Supreme Court said, is constitutional, but it should not be mandatory. Aadhaar should be made only optional. Don't force people to get Aadhaar. And it should be mandatory only if the citizens want to receive benefits from the government in the form of pension, in the form of subsidies, but it should not be made mandatory for everything. The year was 2008 when the then Election Commission of India, headed by Chief Election Commissioner Gopalaswamy, he said, and he wrote a letter to all the chief electoral officers of the country and said, we want to give unique electors photo identity card. Why? Because the existing ID cards that we have, they are not unique. So we have to now make unique electoral photo identity cards so that ID cards, voter ID cards for every single citizen, they are unique. Now, Election Commission of India has said that we will link this electoral photo identity card with Aadhaar to make it unique, which means this politician says that in 2008, then the Election Commission of India has misled the country. At that time, when they started this project of EPICs, their contention was that we will make these voter IDs unique. And now, if you are linking this so called unique voter ID with unique Aadhaar, that means in 2008 you were wrong. And even now, you will be wrong. Why? Because unless and until you do one thing, you will be wrong. And what is that one thing? Today, we have seen problems. For example, in Maharashtra, at the time of Lok Sabha election, because you would know that in Lok Sabha elections, the BJP did not fare well in Maharashtra. The alliance of the Shiv Sena, Congress, and the NCP did well in the Lok Sabha election. But from the time of the Lok Sabha election till the Legislative Assembly election in Maharashtra in November, the state added more than 40 lakh new voters. Opposition says that this raises troubling questions because how can you add 40 lakh voters in these months? And when you compare the number of voters which you have added in the previous 5 years, in the previous 5 years, you added only 32 lakh new voters. So between 2019 till 2024, you added 32 lakh new voters. But between 2024 May and 2024 November, you added 40 lakh voters. This raises troubling questions, which may mean that voters from different states are being added as the voters in Maharashtra. Or same voter is registered multiple times. That means there is duplication. An Election Commission of India says now the solution to this duplication problem, one person having more than one voter ID cards, is to link it with Aadhaar because if Aadhaar is unique, will then remove the duplicate. But Mr. Praveen Chakrabarti raises one important question. For this elector's photo identity card and Aadhaar linkage to work to become successful, there has to be 100% coverage. That means 100% voter IDs should be linked with 100% Aadhaar. But the problem is, Aadhaar is not mandatory because Supreme Court has said this. This, according to Praveen Chakrabarti, is the conundrum that Election Commission of India is facing. Because to make this successful, because if these are EPICs, these are Aadhaar, every voter ID has to be linked with Aadhaar. If there is duplication, which means it will be removed. But what if there are a large number of Indians who will not give Aadhaar details because Aadhaar is not mandatory? That will render the entire exercise meaningless. A long story short, the crux of this of this column is for this linkage of voter ID with Aadhaar to be successful, there has to be 100% coverage. If that does not happen, this entire exercise will fail. Let's look at another column. How the police view custodial torture in India. A study was conducted. Notice the name: Status of Policing in India report. This can be a potential prelims based question as well. Who released this report? Is it the Niti Aayog? No. It is Lok Niti Center for the Study of Developing Society, in association with a non governmental organization, an NGO called Common Cause. So, this Lok Niti CSDS, together with Common Cause, they have released a report called Status of Policing in India report, and it raises troubling questions. Because in this report, lawyers, judges, policemen were interviewed, questions were asked. Questions such as: policemen were asked, for the greater good of the society, dear policemen, tell us, is it all right for the police to be violent towards suspects? That means, do you resort to torturing these suspects? Overwhelming majority, 63% of the police officers are saying yes. Is torture necessary and acceptable to gain information? Because you have arrested somebody and now you want to extract confession from this individual. Is torture necessary? Or if you want information, is torture necessary? Those who have been accused of terrorism, police says, according to this report, 68% of the police says yes, torture is necessary. What you need to understand from this article is that there is a convention, United Nations Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, and or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. This is called United Nations Convention Against Corruption. You tell me, has India signed this convention? Has India signed this convention? No, no, no. Majority are saying no. India has signed it in 1997, but India has not ratified it yet. This convention, which was adopted by the United Nations in 1984, may be wondering, sir, what is this 1984/87? It was adopted in 1984. It came in force in 1987. 10 years later, in 1997, India has signed this convention, but it has not ratified. When it means India has not ratified, that means India is under no obligation to bring in a law against torture in India. But how does this convention define torture? For example, there has to be a public official. Either this public official or with his permission, because we are talking about state should be involved. If this public official belonging to the state or in his presence or with his permission, there are people who use violence, any act which causes pain or suffering, extreme pain and suffering, but it cannot be only physical, it can be mental as well, to obtain information. This is called torture. Long story short, in presence of a public official or by the public official, if there are people who are using acts of extreme pain and suffering, which can be mental or physical, and through that you want to extract information, this amounts to torture. That's the definition of torture under this UN convention. And because of this torture, we have seen custodial deaths in India as well. But how many custodial deaths do we see in India? For that, there is no conclusive number, because different institutions present a different picture. For example, National Crime Records Bureau in 2020 said we have witnessed 76 cases of custodial death. National Human Rights Commission says no, only 70. National Campaign Against Torture, which is a civil society initiative, it says we have had 111 cases. But surprisingly, since 2018, there has been zero conviction, which means there is no accountability. Which means whenever this question on police brutality or custodial torture, whenever concerns are being raised about police brutality or custodial torture, there will automatically be a debate on justice for the victim, accountability, because you have to hold these police officers accountable for the torture that they are subjecting their victims to. And it raises a larger question on human rights. That makes this topic very, very important. This report says there was a consensus. This is disturbing. Why disturbing? There are some cases which go unresolved, unsolved. Why? Because we don't know who committed that crime. For example, the very famous Arushi Talwar case, on which a movie Talwar was also made by Meghna Gulzar. Initially, the dentist couple, father and mother, they were found guilty by the Allahabad court, but later on they were acquitted because, and even now we don't know who killed that beautiful lady, beautiful child, Arushi Talwar. Unsolved. But there is one way in which every single case can be solved in India. Every single case. Confession. If the police arrests me today on the charges of murdering Arushi Talwar and subjects me to torture inside the jail, I will confess, saying, yes, I have killed Arushi Talwar. But gladly, there is a constitutional protection under Article 20, Clause 3, right against self incrimination, something that is found in United States as well. You cannot be a witness against yourself. So this confession that I'm giving to police is not valid, is not admissible before the court. But yes, if I give confession before the judge, then it becomes admissible. Because if I confess before the judge will ask me, were you pressurized into giving this confession? Were you tortured in giving this confession? If yes, then I will set this confession apart. I will not treat it admissible. According to this report, there was a consensus amongst lawyers, judges as well, that confessions to the police should be made admissible. But for that, Alimat Committee had suggested in 2003 that confession, if it is made before a senior police officer, such as the superintendent of the police and above, it should be made admissible. In fact, Law Commission of India has also said in its 69th report in 1977 that we should amend the Indian Evidence Act to ensure that this confession, which is made before senior police officers, should become admissible. Now, the problem is senior police officers, they are involved in this torture. It is sometimes in their presence or with their permission that torture, custodial torture, police brutality is conducted in the police station. Because not everybody can be SP Amit Kumar of the movie Ganga Jal. And we saw how in Ganga Jal is a movie based on Bhagalpur blindings, where acid was thrown into the eyes of the suspected criminals. Amit Kumar could not have sanctioned it. He was the superintendent of the police. But we see that in other cases, the senior police officers are in connivance with the police brutality. This would make it problematic. On top of that, there is another issue flagged by this report. Interviews were conducted, as I said, with doctors, lawyers, and judges. Why doctors? Why lawyers? Why judges? I'll tell you. Judges, for example, according to this report, very rare to see magistrates interacting with arrested persons. In fact, one lawyer described that magistrates are silent spectators who do not record anything or ask where and when were they arrested, which means you give in to the police brutality. You are meant to keep a check on the police, to ask questions to the arrested persons, whether you were communicated the grounds of your arrest in written. Were you tortured? Where were you arrested? How were you arrested? Whether within 24 hours you were produced before me or not. This report says magistrates are mute spectators, silent spectators. They don't ask these questions, majority of them. And if torture has been committed, perpetrated in the prisons, in the police custody, for that there should be investigation by examination by the doctors. According to this report, and this is a disturbing trend, doctors which do not have forensic medicine expertise, they conduct the medical examination. In most cases, doctors with anesthesia background or eye specialists, ophthalmologists, they conduct these medical examinations. It's like polity is being taught by a CSAT faculty, or a CSAT is being taught by the polity faculty. Although you are a faculty, but you have different expertise. So a doctor with forensic medicine expertise, not him or her, but it is the other doctors with anesthesia experience or eye specialist experience. They are conducting the medical examination. But something which was pointed out by a student in the comment section, and which is one miss in this report. This report only tells us what is the police doing, what is the judiciary doing, and whether the police support torture or not support the torture. But why custodial deaths take place? Why police brutality takes place? Why torture takes place? What are the factors that contribute to the use of torture in Indian context? That is something which is missing in this report. But that is something that I'm going to tell. First is colonial hangover. This is how police would function during the colonial period. And our police is the gift of the colonial system. And that logic, that ideology, those practices, they persist even after independence. So it is like a colonial hangover. That's factor number one. Second, pressure from political masters. Again, the example of that movie, Ganga Jal movie, where the DIG is asking DSP, did you get to know how Amit Kumar got Dudhwa? That I'm trying. There is a pressure that you arrest any random person, produce him before the media, and say, we have cracked the case. And then you resort to torture to extract confession. Even senior officers, they want quick results because through this they get promoted as well. Lack of training, more importantly, support, public support. Vikas Dubey was an alleged criminal, wanted in UP. But then he went to Madhya Pradesh. There he was arrested. And then he was to be produced before the court in UP in a perfect Bollywood style. This vehicle in which Vikas Dubey was traveling, it turned turtle, and then Vikas Dubey tried to run, and then he was shot dead. Some people say that this was a classic example of a fake encounter. Because how would Vikas Dubey run? Or, right now in today's newspaper also, the judiciary has cited public good to announce and call for an SIT, Special Investigation Team, investigation into the alleged fake encounter of the accused in the in the Badlapur sexual assault, where two girl children were allegedly assaulted by the sweeper of a school, and that person was allegedly killed in a fake encounter. Fake encounters are a norm. The fact is, people support it. Why? Because of our slow judicial system, criminal justice system, where it takes decades, ages for judgment to be delivered. where there are cases which are pending before the courts, more than 5 crore cases pending in different courts of this country. And these pendency of cases has morphed now into a social problem. Social problem in a sense that today people support these extrajudicial encounters. Because if this case goes to the court will give tariq, but no justice. So it is better kill these people in fake encounter. And the police, they get the support of the people in these extrajudicial killings. These are the factors that contribute to the use of torture in Indian context. Okay? That is why, look at the global picture. There was a Guantanamo Bay, notorious for its use of torture. It was a detention center of United States in Cuba, where those accused of 9/11 attacks and other forms of attacks, they were brought from different parts of the world and then tortured in the Guantanamo Bay. Similarly, we saw in Iraq the Abu Ghraib prison. These are the global examples of where institutionalized torture is being practiced or was being practiced. That is why this question: India must enact a law against torture, ratify the UN Convention against torture, and take effective steps to insulate the police from external pressures. And mind you, this has been something which is mandated by the Supreme Court. Justify the statement and write an answer in 150 words. Let's look at the last article that we have to discuss today. Foreign funds must be used within 4 years, is the center. What is this law? This law is called FCRA, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. This was initially passed in 1976 when the country was in a state of emergency. But then this law was repealed and a new law was enacted in the year 2010. But then this law was significantly amended in 2020. Massive amendments were made to this law in 2020. But what is this law? This law regulates the acceptance as well as utilization of foreign content. For example, under this law, there are certain category of people who are prohibited to accept foreign contribution. For example, judges. For example, candidates contesting elections. For example, political parties. For example, cartoonists. For example, publishers, editors of magazines, newspapers. You cannot accept foreign contribution. Full stop. In the year 2020, a new category was added. This category of persons also cannot accept foreign contribution. What is this category? Public servant. So now public servants also cannot accept foreign contribution. That's number one. Number two, if, for example, this was an entity, whether it is an association, whether it is an NGO, whether it is an individual who is eligible for foreign contribution, what you have to do, you have to get this FCRA license. Central government will issue this license, and this license is valid for 3 years. That means for 3 years, because you have this FCRA license, you can receive foreign contribution, foreign funding. But previously, what you could have done, X also has foreign FCRA license. Y also has FCRA license. Now, if X has received 1 crore in foreign contribution, X could have diverted a part of this money to Y because Y is also eligible for foreign contribution. So, if X and Y both are eligible for foreign contribution, X gets the funding, gets the contribution. X can divert it to Y as well. But can X divert it to you because you are not eligible? No, that would be misuse. In 2020, when the law was amended, the amended law says, no, you can't do that. If this foreign contribution has been received by X, only X can utilize it. You cannot divert it to Y. If you do that, we will take action again. But whoever wants this FCRA license, for example, there is an association, let's say an NGO, Common Cause, Center for Policy Research, universities in India as well. If you need FCRA license, you have to give Aadhaar. Aadhaar of whom? Aadhaar of the director of this organization, Aadhaar of all office bearers, Aadhaar of key functionaries. This was the change which was done in 2020. But something else. FCRA account. In which account will you receive this money? Previously, prior to 2020, it was said that you can designate any account and you will receive foreign contribution in that single account. But in 2020, the amended law says, now we will tell you where you can open the account, and in only that account you can receive the foreign contribution paid by the government. Says now you can open a bank account in a State Bank of India bank, Parliament Street branch. That means now you cannot suggest on your own, specify on your own in which bank and in which state, in which branch you will receive the foreign contribution. No, we will tell you. And we have told you that you can open the bank account in State Bank of India, Parliament Street. Only in that bank account you can receive the foreign contribution. Plus, previously, if you had received foreign contribution, you could have spent 50% of that foreign contribution for administrative purposes, which means for paying salaries to your employees, rent, traveling. You could have spent 50% of this foreign contribution. Now, the amended law says no, you can't spend 50% for administrative purposes. You can spend only 20%. And if you want this license to be renewed, since this license is valid for 3 years, but if your license is getting expired in 6 months, before that, you have to apply for the renewal of this license. And when you will apply for renewal, the central government may inquire. What is the inquiry? Before renewing your license, the central government may inquire whether this organization is benami, fictitious, whether this organization has been misusing money and you have been convicted for communal tension or religious conversion, because there have been allegations that foreign contribution, this foreign donation, is used by some NGOs to convert Indians into Christianity. So before renewing your license, the central government may inquire whether this organization has been convicted for communal tension or religious conversion, or whether this organization is fictitious or benami. Fictitious in the sense you primarily were receiving foreign contribution for education, but you are utilizing this money for religious conversion. Same time, you have not been found guilty of misutilization or diversion of funds, because you can spend only 20% for administrative purposes. If you're misutilizing it and spending 50%, 30% on rent, we will not renew your license. And previously, your registration could have been suspended only for 180 days. But 2020 amendment says for a further 180-day period as well. And now, if this FCRA license is valid for 3 years, the amount of money that you have in this bank account, you can utilize it within 4. That is what the Union Home Ministry has said, because Home Ministry is responsible for granting these FCRA licenses. And the amount of money that you have, you can spend that amount of money in 4 years. That's what this newspaper article is all about. And to understand that, I have given you the broader context as well. When this law was enacted, what were the changes? Because significant amendments were made in the year 2000. That's about it in our newspaper analysis for today. If you have got benefited from this session, do like this video. Do not exit before liking this video, and drop in your comments and subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. I will see you again tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the morning, with another edition of the Hindu newspaper. Till then, have a great time. All the best.